All right, so this is the last of the three videos here. This is the actual writing a plan assignment. It's fairly straightforward. The writing plan is almost exactly what you did before. It's just instead of talking about the poems, you're talking about and metaphors, you're talking about the stories and symbols. So let's look at what we have here. It says the writing plan assignment. That's just the title. The writing plan consists of two parts. For the first part of the assignment, you'll need to do the following: state the thesis of your writing project, again, just like you did before. Your thesis must mention symbols and must explain specifically what the symbols tell about the overall meaning of the story. Your thesis should be only 1 or 2 sentences long, and look to the make sure to look at the sample assignment of the writing project for a guide. This is writing project number 1, but it's number 2. So it must have all that. Your thesis also must mention, of course, your connection to the story. So state the topic sentence of your first body paragraph, and then tell me what evidence. Again, exact same thing that we did before. The topic sentence is a complete sentence that expresses the main idea of the body paragraph. Each paragraph has to specifically support your thesis, so I should be able to see that connection when reading the topic sentences. Make sure you've got that. Also, each body paragraph must have a particular idea that holds it together and differentiates from other paragraphs. So think rather carefully. Again, I'm looking for this structure. I'm looking for a thesis, and then I'm going to be looking for, oh, here is a topic sentence that clearly relates back to the thesis. Here's another topic sentence that clearly relates back to the thesis. So I want to see that. So clearly state the topic sentence for your first body paragraph, then specific quote or quotes that you'll use to support that topic sentence, right? Your topic sentence needs to be supported by at least one quote from the story. Write that specific quote you plan to use, and it must be directly related to the topic sentence. Everything has to be related to the thing right above it, right? And then you just you don't need to say anything about the quote, just write it, again, just like you did before. And then you'll repeat steps 2 and 3 for however many body paragraphs you have, right? There's no rule saying you have to have 3 body paragraphs. You can have as many as makes sense. You should probably have between 3 and 5. And then I say, note if part 1 of your writing plan is longer than 300 words, it's too long, right? Because this should just be a couple of sentences. Your thesis should just be a couple of sentences. Your topic sentence, each topic sentence should only be a sentence, and then you should have some quotes. If it's going longer than 300 words, that's way too, and 300 words is way too much, right? 100, 150 words, something like that for this. So, you don't need to do too much for this. Then part 2 of the writing plan, you're going to need to write a paragraph of at least 200 words in which you talk about why you chose the story you're writing about, how did you prepare, what helped you most in preparing, what obstacles do you think you'll face, what do you plan if you get stuck, any other thoughts or concerns. So just a couple hundred words thinking about what you were doing here. So not a big deal with that. So then just look at the sample writing plan. Again, very similar to what we had before. I have the same thesis that I gave you in the previous video. In the flowers, Alice Walker uses the flowers as a symbol to show us that Mayap is becoming less innocent when she learns about the hatred towards African Americans and the brutalities that she and other African Americans might face in the future. I also have had experiences that have made me realize I'm much less respected and so much less safe than I thought I was. So that's our thesis. Notice, of course, our thesis mentions symbols, specific ways in which symbols help the story, and then mentions the author's own connection to the story. All right. And then notice down here, I noticed that I had highlighted the word symbol. And just look down here. At the beginning of the story, Walker uses the flowers as a symbol. See, I've highlighted that because I want us to remember that if our thesis is going to be talking about symbolism, then our topic sentences need to be talking about symbolism, right? So let's talk about at the beginning of the story, Walker uses the flowers as a symbol to show us that Mayap feels innocent and carefree. All right, so we have, we're talking about symbols, but we're only talking about the symbols that happen at the beginning of the story. So that's going to differentiate it maybe from some of the other things. I've got a quote from the beginning of the story, and then once I have that part is done, I can move on to body paragraph number 2. Later in the story, again, see how that differentiates from the other. We know that this is a different paragraph because I'm going to be talking about stuff that's going to happen in the middle of the story. So later in the story, Walker uses the flowers as symbols. Again, I'm still talking about symbols, right? It's in all of the paragraphs. That's why I've highlighted this here. Remember to talk about it all the way through. to show us that Mayap is becoming less comfortable with her surroundings. And I have a quote about that, about what's going to show that she's going to be more than a mile from home, and the strangeness of the land made it not as pleasant. So we're saying something bad's potentially happening here, right? And so I'm going to talk about the flowers as symbols to show us we think something bad's going to happen in the middle of the story. Then, third body paragraph, by the end of the story, again, see how I'm dividing this up. Beginning of the story, middle of the story, end of story. The flowers symbolize how Mayap begins to see the world as dangerous. As she picked the wild pink rose to add to her bundle, she noticed a raised mound, a ring around the rose's root. It was the rotted remains of a noose, right? She laid down her flowers, and summer was over. So you can see that these quotes are showing us how things are going to begin to get more dangerous. We're still talking about symbols, but we show how those symbols change as we go through. Okay. Then I've got a fourth body paragraph. Although I've never found the remains of a lynched man, I too have had the experience where I've learned that I was not as safe as simply because of who I am. You don't have to have a quote down here. You're going to simply tell your story. However, you could have a quote from the story here if one resonates with you. So you don't have to have an example and evidence down here. And then that's it, right? So again, it just shows you the structure of what we're looking for. Oh, then of course we have the writing plan number 2. I chose to write the flowers because of experience of this. So whatever it is, and just talk about any issues that you'll face. So that's what I'm looking for the writing plan. And again, we're going to want that due by Tuesday, and then we come back to class on Tuesday. We can begin to talk about that. So you should be set to take us through till the time we meet again on Tuesday. You've got your project number 1 reflection essay, and you've got this writing plan. Now, all of this, of course, assumes that you have actually completed the final draft. If you haven't yet completed the final draft, then you're going to need to make sure to do all those. And if you're having issues with that, make sure to get in contact with me. So work on that. As always, let me know if you have any questions. Otherwise, I will talk to you on Tuesday.